Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo II D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be creating the Assassin's Charge-Up skills. Well, 5 out of the 6, and I'll explain why. But first, let's jump into the campaign update. So, my players have run through the Arcane Sanctuary on one of the branches now. There's 4 that they can see. There is one that had a bunch of MC Escher staircases. There was one that has a bunch of normal staircases. There was one that had just a single pillar or statue thing. And then there was one that had a bunch of portals. They decided to go with the MC Escher one, and to make it more interesting, I developed a mechanic for it that I'm really proud of. Gravity and weirdness work a little differently here. The place is essentially double-sided. It has staircases that sometimes lead from one platform to another, but as you're going down, you have to make, I think, if your intelligence is not positive, if you don't have a positive intelligence modifier, you need to make an intelligence acrobatics check, intelligence-based acrobatics, to see if you fall off the staircase and end up on the other side, or you fall prone or something. If you're jumping a gap, you need to make an intelligence-based athletics check. And this way, it just kind of reinforced this idea that things were a little different here. And in fact, the entire thing is double-sided. So if you wanted to end up on the other side, you can make I think it was an intelligence-based acrobatics check to see if you fall prone or not, but you can walk onto the other side. And so there was a couple of battles where people were going back and forth because there were enemies that could move just straight up through the floor, as well as enemies that ended up on both sides. And it was a ton of fun to run. One of my players described it as 2.5-dimensional combat. Right now, they are exploring the normal staircase branch. They got to the end of the MC Escher one and nothing was there, so they turned around and went back. In order to make this one interesting, I made it a maze. And I did the work in a Dots and Boxes website. My original intent was to make it so that I could change the maze around so that they had to make survival checks and make it a bit more mechanically interesting, but that wasn't... I couldn't actually do that on the website that I was using until I realized I could just use Microsoft Excel and make the walls the outlines of the boxes. So yeah, we'll see how well that goes. But for right now, I'm going to be using what I have. Anyway, that is the campaign update. So let's jump into the changelog. So right off the bat, it's been a couple of weeks, almost a month, since I've done a video on this. So I have 8 different changes. The Amazon's Ice Arrow did not have a timing restriction on its reaction restriction, so I threw that in there so that it did. The Amazon's multiple shots dexterity saving throw is now based off of the Amazon's base saving throw DC rather than a specialized one that keyed off of dexterity, I believe. Just cuts down on the number of things you have to remember. The Druid's Wear form no longer requires a bonus action to end its effect. The Necromancer's Golems, all of them, are immune to the poisoned and unconscious conditions. That was something that Constructs had back in 3rd edition, and I figured, they're golems, you might as well do that anyway. But the Iron Golem specifically can now be created from any primarily metal object, instead of requiring 1 pound of it. I realized that with rings and amulets, you couldn't actually create a golem from it. So I made that tweak to give you a bit more of variety. The Amazon's dodge benefits now only work with taking the dodge action on your turn as an action, because it was causing problems with avoid. Avoid, I believe, was when you are the target of an attack or you have to make a saving throw. You get to add your wisdom to the saving throw and your armor class until the start of your next turn or something like that. And that way, no, sorry, that was dodge. However, avoid was being able to make to dodge as a reaction. But stacking both of those, gaining advantage on the dexterity saving throw and attacks having disadvantage against you, made the Amazon way too tanky. So I nerfed it so that you don't get those benefits as much. The Paladin's Smite no longer shoves. I got tired of dealing with prone creatures getting just stomped, sometimes literally, by the party, and instead it just moves a creature 5 feet and then an additional 5 feet at 10th level, so that the charge ability can work properly. The intent is that you hit, you dash as a bonus action, you move the 10 feet, and then you hit again. This way, charge was reworded slightly so that it actually works with those multiple attacks. So then you are able to get that D4 on each of your attacks. That is it for the changelog. So let's get into the main event. All right, here we are on Icy Veins and taking a look at the charge up skills. We have 6 of them. We have Tiger Strike, Cobra Strike, Phoenix Strike, Fists of Fire, Claws of Thunder, and Blades of Ice. Each of them have the same mechanic. Each time you hit, you gain a charge up to 3 charges. And you can stack multiple charges for each one of those. So you can have a maximum of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 3 is 18. So you can have up to 18 charges. And then when you use either a finishing move over here or a regular attack, you expend the charge or charges, depending on the version of Diablo you're using, and you get additional effects. The Tiger Strike just increases your physical damage. Cobra Strike gives you some healing and some mana steal. Fists of Fire deals fire damage. And then Claws of Thunder is lightning. And Blades of Ice is cold. And Phoenix Strike is cold, fire, and lightning damage. Depending on how many charges you have, I highly suggest taking a look at Ginger Gaming Mentor's skill overviews. He goes through each one of these, and they are so good. I'll link his channel down below. Just go to his playlists and find the Assassin Skills playlist. You know what? I'll throw that one in there as well. But I would not be able to make most of these videos, most of these abilities, without going in and testing and doing a lot more research. All I have to do is watch his 10 to 15 minute videos, and he goes over everything. They're so detailed and amazing. They're so nice. So that's the basic rundown on the charge up skills. So let's go look at what I have so far, which is nothing, because this was the most difficult thing to come up with. I had no idea what I was going to do for any of these, because they're so mechanically different from any other skill. Because you build up charges, but then you're dealing with memory issues. And okay, how many charges did I have? And then I thought about, what if I gave you a number of charges or a number of points equal to your proficiency bonus, and then you could spend the charges on charge up skills, and then when you expend your charges, you get them back. And I had so many issues with this, and I'm keeping these here. I'm keeping these in the back of my mind because I might revisit this. But I had a burst of inspiration. I finally have a solution that is elegant, but it doesn't fit the mechanics of how the charge-up skills actually work. But I think it's going to be great. So let's go down and see what I've come up with. So here is the martial artist. Name will be under construction. But anyway, so this is a separate one. You can see that I have the kicks in right here. I'm keeping this stuff here because like I said, I might revisit this. But anyway, let's get on to the main event. So the brilliant flash of inspiration I had was stances. In martial arts, I've taken Taekwondo, I've done a little bit of other self-defense stuff, but in martial arts, there are different stances you can take. I mean, everybody's seen Kung Fu Panda, there's tiger and mantis and viper and monkey and crane. And they have very different styles of approaching combat. So you can see down here, I have combat stance. And up here, I have elemental strikes. So what I did is I took the charge-up skills and I split them in two. You have your Fists of Fire, Claws of Thunder, and Blades of Ice as your elemental strikes. And then you have Tiger Strike, Cobra Strike, and Phoenix Strike changed to be combat stances. You have Cobra Stance, Phoenix Stance, and Tiger Stance. I know it could go the other direction, but take a look at what I've done so far. Okay, when you gain the subclass at 3rd level, you strike with the power of the elements. Choose an option below. Whenever you gain a level in this class, you can replace the elemental strike you know with another elemental strike. So I don't want to lock people completely out of it. I figured that changing it out on a long rest was a bit too good, so I decided to give it to you on level up. So the elemental strike options, you have Blades of Ice. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you may have it make a Constitution saving throw. On a fail, it is encased in ice for 1 minute, or until it or another creature within reach of it uses an action to break away the ice. As long as it is encased in ice, its speed is reduced to 0. This feels very close to Rhyme's Binding Ice. You can see that it is hindered by ice formations for 1 minute, or until another creature uses an action to break away the ice. Speed reduced to 0. There's a couple of different changes. One, this is an area of effect, self 30-foot cone, whereas Blades of Ice is a single target. It also deals 3d8 cold damage, but you're making an attack, and this is on a hit, so it works out. Claws of Thunder, I don't really know what to do on this one. The original ability it deals a little bit of lightning damage, and then it has a Nova, and then it deals charged bolts. It shoots off area of effect stuff. I don't really know what to do. I thought about something like Shocking Grasp, where they can't take reactions, but then realized that's not really that good. Then I thought about Knockback, and that kind of treads on the territory of, I think it's Dragon Tail that already knocks them back. So I'm just ending up with, I'll deal with it later. Fists of Fire, on the other hand, was one of the first ones that I'd come up with. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you may have it make a dexterity saving throw. On a fail, it ignites in flames and takes 1d6 fire damage at the end of its next turn, unless it or another creature within reach of it uses an action to douse the flames, or if another effect, such as being submerged in water, puts out the flames. This is Searing Smite. Very, very similar. It's a Constitution rather than Dexterity saving throw, and it takes 1d6 fire damage on the start of its turn, or when it hits, and at the start of its turn. However, I decided that would be a bit too strong, so this is limited to once per turn, but because you're not expending a spell slot for it. So maybe that's too strong, but we'll see. It is only once per turn. I mean, after all, the rogue has sneak attack, and that's multiple d6s. But it is conditional. This is what playtesting is for, right? Now, the combat stances. At 6th level, you gain the secrets of assassin combat stances. Choose an option below. Whenever you gain a level, you can swap it out. Cool. Cobra Stance. When you hit with a melee weapon attack, you gain temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt, rounded up. This is pretty much pulled from Heroism, almost 1-to-1. Heroism gives immune to frightened, but you gain temporary hit points equal to your spellcasting ability modifier on the start of each of its turns. It's a guaranteed and set number of temporary hit points with a maximum of 5, normally anyway, with a maximum of 5, and they lose the temporary hit points at the end of the spell. So, yeah, it's a little meh, but it is guaranteed rather than I have to hit. Upcasting does increase the number of creatures you can target, so yeah, I think it should be fairly balanced. It protects mostly, instead of one massive hit, it protects mostly against lots of little tiny hits. If you have to move through creatures that are getting opportunity attacks, or creatures that have multi-attack or something. Phoenix Stance. The reason why Claws of Thunder was wonky is because of Phoenix Stance. When you use your elemental strike, the effect is applied to the target and each creature of your choice within 10 feet of it. So that way, everybody around your target has to, make the Constitution saving throw, or be encased in ice, or be set on fire. Instead of having its own effect, it boosts your elemental strike. And that I think actually fits, because Phoenix Strike, the first charge deals fire damage. It drops a meteor. The second charge does chain lightning. And the third sends out a bunch of ice bolts. But you get that charge as well as everything under it. So it kind of works with all of them. And you'll notice the synergies down at the bottom of that text box. Those synergies are Fists of Fire, Claws of Thunder, and Blades of Ice. And on each one of these, Phoenix Strike is a synergy. So there's interplay between them. So I think it fits. I think it's interesting and definitely worth testing. Now, Tiger Stance, the last one. Once per turn, when you hit with a melee weapon attack, you can add a number of d6s equal to your proficiency bonus to the damage. This is sneak attack. There's no doubts about it. It's just sneak attack. Tiger Strike does more physical damage. I had originally considered you can spend a bonus action to give yourself advantage on all weapon attacks this turn, but because I was like, it increases the attack rating, until I realized that every single one of these charge-up skills increase your attack rating, but its main thing is building up damage. I mean, just look at that. Up to 1440. And yeah, that's a lot of damage. Now, sneak attack, the rogue's sneak attack is, I think it's half your level rounded up. Yeah, it's half your level rounded up for the number of d6s, but it requires you to have very specific conditions met, whereas this one is just if you hit. I had considered restricting all of these to only on your turn, but we'll see if that's powerful or not. I mean, after all, the rogue gets... Actually, here, let me see. Blades of Ice, Sentinel, if you hit with if you hit with an opportunity attack, their speed becomes 0. This reduces it to 0, but it is going through a Constitution saving throw, so maybe. Let me see. Tiger Stance, the sneak attack works on other players' turns as well, because it is only once per turn, not just once per turn on your turn. So, I think that's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. And that's it for the charge up skills. However, I have one more bonus. At level 3, you get your elemental strikes. At level 6, you get your combat stance. And then at level 10, you get your finishing move. However, what about level 14? Well, I figured that there is a lot of restriction on how you want to build this, because you get one elemental strike, you get one combat stance, you get one finishing move. So I thought, well, what if you're facing down an enemy that's immune to fire or cold or lightning or whatever? You want to swap it out, or test whether or not you want to hold on to the combat stance or elemental strike or finishing move that you have. Let's try out all of them. So Combat Trance. At 14th level, you can enter a meditative state, allowing you to quickly adapt to the needs of combat. When you roll for initiative or at the start of your turn, for 1 minute or until you are incapacitated, you can use a bonus action to replace any elemental strike, combat stance, or finishing move until the end of the trance. So, you roll up, you're facing down a red dragon, or a blunderboar that's immune to fire, and you don't want to deal fire damage anymore. So you can go into that trance, and then your first bonus action, I'm going to swap out my Fists of Fire and put in Blades of Ice. That way I'm going to I can hit the dragon, and it's not going to be able to move, and we'll be able to jump on it, and hooray, that's wonderful. Or we're facing down a horde of goblins or fallen, and I don't need, Tiger Stance anymore, because Tiger Stance is just overkill. Instead, I need to use Phoenix Stance and get some of that area of effect so that I can drop my Fists of Fire on the things that are gathered around me. And you can use the ability once per long rest. There we go. That's what I have. That's the first foray into figuring out how the martial arts assassin, or the Kixin, quote-unquote Kixin, is going to work. I have no idea if this is going to be good. I don't know if this is going to be well received either. But I am so glad that I have something down for this. I was prepared to leave this for last because it was so weird, so hard to come up with something that would actually fit. It wasn't elegant. But let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below and test it out on your own tables. I mean, ask for permission, of course, but yeah, let me know how this goes. You can find me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2 on Twitter and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.